I'm not racist, but why don't whites have a White History Month?
I'm not racist, but what's up with Hip Hop Wednesday?
I'm not racist, but why can't I say the N-word?
I'm not racist, but why do all black people like watermelon?
I'm not racist, but you don't act black.
I'm not racist, but why do we have all black Greek life?
I'm not racist, but why they have a black entertainment channel?
I'm not racist because I have a black friend.
I'm not racist, but you're pretty for a black girl.
I'm not racist, but you don't talk black.
I'm not racist, but how do you get your hair like that?
I'm not racist, but all lives matter.
I'm not racist, but all lives matter.
I slay, I slay, I slay. We gon' slay, we slay, I slay, I slay.
South Carolina College was founded in 1801. Built on the backs of slave labor, the historic horseshoe was created. Faculty members were able to keep personal slaves in slave quarters behind the main buildings. Of all of these, only one remains, located in the back of the president's house. After the Civil War, the university was required to open admission to people of all creeds, colors, and races, by order of the new South Carolina Constitution. By 1876, the university had become predominantly African American. A bill was passed within the following 2 years, declaring USC a whites-only school. It would remain that way for 85 years, until on September 11, 1963, 3 black students gained admittance, shocking the pro-segregation majority of the campus. Since 1963, the university has been home to great black leaders, including Charles L. McMillan, who established the Office of Multicultural Student Affairs, and John Waddell, who became the youngest president ever at a historically black college or university. And yet, this past year, we've had black USC students called animals, the first black fraternity council president impeached, the annual homecoming step show canceled, and a march to bring attention to it all. Where do we go from here?
I worked at a grocery store in Inman. The only grocery store in Inman, actually. I worked there. And there might have been 10 black customers that I could count on seeing on the regular. But other than that, like, it was pretty much just white faces. I went to a high school of a little over 3,000. And I would say in my class there might have been like 100 black people.
I saw all different types of, walks of life. And I never really noticed anything. To be honest with you, people might think I'm ignorant for saying this. I don't personally believe I've had a racial encounter. And to be honest with you, if I did, I wouldn't care.
So when I came to USC, I would say that 99.9% of my friends were white. All my friends from elementary school through high school had all been white. And I wouldn't say that I identified better with white people. I just knew more white people. It was just like who I had always been around. I had never really had a large population of black friends. So coming to USC, I remember like seeing like the black student section, and I was like, oh, I would never sit there. Like I am not welcome to sit there. Like I had always just been very comfortable with being seen as like the white black kid, and like real black people didn't like associate with me. So I had no intentions of ever really making that many black friends at USC until maybe my junior year, when I finally would say that I made a black friend or two, started doing black people things, and kind of broke out of my shell a little bit more. I started exploring some parts of who I am that are a little bit more culturally relevant to what like my parents would have experienced, and what my parents would have expected me to do in college instead of some of the things that I'd been doing. Not that I was doing anything bad.
In the terms of USC, I want to say moving in freshman year, living with new people in a traditional style residence hall, people coming from all over, they're not necessarily used to living with someone who's black, so I always got the whole questions like, oh, can I touch your hair? How come you don't wash your hair all the time? Like, why do you listen to this music? Just being exposed to all those questions, and I'm just like, you don't have the answers to that? Because you did have the people who were genuinely curious, like, oh, like, wow, can you tell me more? Who wanted to take that time and turn it into an educational moment. Meanwhile, you did have the people who were coming from like a bad place, and they were just being rude and disrespectful, and their opinions were not trying to change whatsoever. They weren't trying to grow from it.
People take too much, attention to race, and it saddens me because when we die, our skin color doesn't go anywhere. It turns to dust.
But I feel like Black USC is almost a student organization that is exclusive, and it's not exclusive to only black people, but certain black people at the university. I feel like there are like check boxes that you have to have, like, oh, are you in this? Like, do you do this on your weekends? Do you hang out with these people? And if you don't, then you can't be in Black USC. So I feel like it's something that is fairly segregated, not only amongst the university, but amongst black people themselves. There are definitely black people that I would say who are not in Black USC. I was not one for a very long time. And I think it could be a turnoff for people. I think it could be something that's very intimidating for that freshman who's had an experience like mine, where you come from a fairly whitewashed area, and then you see black people really have no intentions of accepting you into the culture of the black student culture at the university. So what would be my incentive? Why would I want to engage with these black people if they are just as closed off to me as somebody who might actually be racist is?
We shouldn't be having these section off areas. Oh, that's the black area over there. You can't go over there. And I hear about you ever going over there. Or that's the white area. Stay away from there. You can't walk by yourself because people gonna think you about to rob somewhere. No, we don't need to do that. We all need to, come together. And I believe it starts at the community level because.
I mean, I guess it's an exclusive black student group. I don't think like when I came here, I wasn't like where's Black USC, that type thing. It's something that's just kind of like just thrown upon you, like because you're black in USC, like you're Black USC. I think also when you look at the whole inclusion aspect, I think it's where a lot of us find our identity. However, I think some of us don't venture out from that identity and begin to develop in other areas on campus, which can be self-crippling over our 4 year, 5 years here at USC as well. So, but I think that with that, it's not. At least for me, it's not something I think is as bad necessarily. I don't think I'm not unless you're just strictly in that group, because then you're just isolating yourself from your environment. But again, that's something you can just be in a football team, you're isolating yourself. It's a form of isolation. But I mean, I know other schools have it, like BOSU, Black OSU, Black Clemson. Other schools have it. I think it's just our way of our sense of community.
I think similar to the way that some parts of the Black Lives Matter movement has formed, Black USC is kind of a place where people can go and feel like they are going to be completely accepted, wholly accepted, and not judged for something that they can't change about themselves. I think that it creates a resilience because that all the students are in there together. When something is said about the black population, we all feel it the same way. So I think it is something that can be used positively. It's somewhere that people can, really vent. It's somewhere that people can really feel all their emotions without being like, oh my gosh, they're just playing the race card again. And that I do appreciate.
I think protesting here with just one group is not the most effective way. I think you need to make sure you have a huge mixture. Like, people are going to protest, it definitely needs to be a big mixture of people, not just one race, because in some people's eyes, they're just going to wave it off. They're not going to care. And you want people to care when you protest.
It's uncomfortable for people, white, black, or anything else, to see a large group of people, white, black, or anything else, banding together and wanting a change. So when I sit in class, I know one class I can think of off the top of my head. There's like 6 black people in the class, and we all sit in the front row together. Like we all have our seats, and it's like myself, and then 3 black girls on my left, and then 3 on my right, and that's how we all sit. So those are the black people in my class. So I guess I see where it comes from, where we are smaller in numbers. But I can see why it's something that people would be not nervous about, but apprehensive about.
And that Monday morning, I stood across Green Street, more or less to watch what was happening. But I noticed that among those who were present were faculty and staff, many of whom that I knew. And so here I was in this kind of awkward moment, being a sort of member of the audience. And then I decided to go across the street. I read the demands. They sounded compelling upon the first read. I saw my friends and colleagues in the crowd, and so my wife and I went and joined. And then when the march moved from Long Street to Osborne, we were there in the rear of the line. Partly because I was there to affirm the right of students to engage in protest and to register their discontent. Partly because I was curious, and partly because I too believe that this was a moment for our university to do a lot of soul searching, a lot of institutional review about questions that had been bubbling for a long time. Questions that were outlined explicitly in the statement, but also questions that were not fully articulated or outlined on that piece of paper.
And we're charged a lot of times to speak up about what we want to see on campus, what struggles challenges that we face or whatever. And we're met with, we'll have a conversation about it. Like, I'm to the point, whether it's because I'm a senior or just been through a lot of this university, I'm tired of having conversations about stuff. We have a conversation and it dissipates. Like what are we actually doing? And so I think more tangible efforts from administration, whether it be whether it's a conversation in which the president is coming to speak to us, one-on-one or within small groups. This is a lot more than trying to have, send out a survey monkey saying how we feel about campus climate. You know what I mean? So like, what are we doing? What are we actually doing to help see these changes go through? I think a lot of times, my 4 years here, we haven't seen anything, if not much, about how we can really begin to incorporate some of the identified changes we want to see on our campus. And so we want it to be a campus for the students. At some point in time, university administration is going to have to listen to what the students have to say and help implement these changes, because we can't do it alone.
I think that what made Vision 2020 such a phenomenal moment in the time in which it happened is that here was a statement, but it was visually rendered. People marched, people gathered, people spoke openly, people almost dramatized their concerns. And that helps any movement. And what has to happen is there needs to continue to be voice and identity with the issues. If it's simply a chronicling of lists, then that can be easily dismissed. But if it is the experience of John or William or Sue or Elizabeth or Lisa, then that becomes something that you have to grapple with as an individual, but also as an institution. Many institutions, that students of color, particularly African American students, find their space on those campuses troubled and challenging. But for me, as someone who's been on these campuses before, that does not mean black students not come. But it means that we change those spaces so that it is receptive. It is not just simply hospitable, but a place where people can navigate well and have a good experience.
You probably won't see a lot of black students here, but we're working on it. You should definitely come and be a part of the number, which increases so other people can see that we do have a fairly decent amount of black students here. Because if they're just walking on a normal day, they're probably going to see about 3 black students on campus. And if they look on the website, it's going to look like a lot more, but that's not true at all.
More diverse and inclusive USC, I think, until we begin to see some of these tangible changes on our campus, I don't think, at least myself, as a future USC alum, I don't feel comfortable recommending a future African American male to come here for undergrad or let alone graduate school. And so I think that speaks a lot when looking at the whole alumni association versus Black alumni association. And
we can improve race relations is if we are, learning from each other. Black people can learn from white people can learn from black people.
I think whether it's developing initiatives here or having more meaningful conversations within the U101 classrooms about how you respond in situations where you don't feel comfortable, when you're not in an environment that you're you're used to and whatnot, could go a long way.
It all starts with just having everyone on the same page about why certain people get offended and some people feel excluded, and then once you have the understanding of why you're hurt, then how you move forward, and everyone just does it together. So it can't be like, even though it can start with one person, I definitely think it takes all of us to do it.
Honestly, I think it's a two-way street. I had this conversation with a friend a couple weeks ago, and I think, at least on my end as a Black male, or as a Black person in general, I have to get away from saying, you don't understand, you'll never understand, defensive attitude, and really respect and honor the fact that someone is one to serve in the advocacy role and is there to listen to what I have to say. We cannot, as at least as Black people, continue to ignore that or try to become defensive in that, but really show that, hey, like this is a space where you can ask, we can have Q&A, and we can really try to determine some creative avenues in which you can better serve as an advocate for what's been going on.
Well, I also want to say, Black people need to go talk to white people too. It just don't, because Black people walk in cliques too. It's not just a white person. Yes, white people are the majority, but we all need to do our part to make sure we're coming together and being more diverse here. It takes two to tango.
I think students must always do their homework. They must always know their history, and they must always know the context of which they're operating. So that USC is not distinctive. It is not unique. We are moving in a pathway charted by generations of people, but we're also moving a pathway that's in a present moment that's shaped by perspectives around this country. And so I think those students here must constantly look around the world and look around this nation to see how the sentiments being expressed here, how the decisions that we are making are in concert reflective of developments elsewhere in the country. Because I don't think what we're seeing here is altogether USC Columbia specific. It is a challenge of higher education. It's a challenge of our nation, and we must always keep that as part of the conversation.
I think one thing we can look at, honestly, is incorporating a diversity recruitment program for high school seniors, but also for graduate students. I think although we have summer seniors, which is like that 3 to 4 day week in the summer, 1 week in the summer, in which obviously seniors come in, be acclimated to campus. I think we can do a lot more in helping our students transition within their first week to a month on campus to really identify campus resources and whatnot, to be successful during the time here at USC.
The best you can do is try. I always say try. Be a little Indian not could.
Also, I should say is I can't imagine any historically white institution where you're going to find a kumbaya moment, where it's going to be this kind of oasis of tranquility, because that does not exist. And that is not our nation. That's not our world. So that may well be the sentiment now. But my hope is that we're building an institution and we're engaged in a process of being architects of a new USC. And doing so from our points of view, which are points of view where we can fully point to our concerns, our disagreements, our disappointments, but that's not where the story ends. The story is that we will use those as building blocks to build a University of South Carolina for all people, where all people are welcome, where all people are given the resources and the experience to have a transformative undergraduate or graduate experience.
You don't have to think about it when it doesn't affect you.
I don't know what triggers someone's heart to get that ugly.
And we don't say like, why are all these white girls running on a horseshoe? Like, what's going on? We don't call them names or animals or monkey. So there's a different way in which you respond to situations where you don't feel comfortable. I think